My first video on YouTube was about Arsenal, and I said how far I think they can go this season.
Just you have so many young players, I'm just not sure how you do. But more importantly, I don't think they have the consistency to go over across a full season and get Champions League football. I just don't.
Yeah, not great. 19 games later, Arsenal sit at the top of the Premier League with the 5th best first half of a season in Premier League history with 50 points. Playing 19, of course, winning 16 of them, drawing 2 and losing just 1 game this whole season. Comparing a few things to the best starts in history, they've conceded 16 goals. That's the 26th best start in Premier League history, and they've scored 45 goals, which is the 16th best start in Premier League history. Well, I say start, first half of a season. The team closest to Arsenal to have the best first half and not win the Premier League was Liverpool in 18-19. Liverpool had the 4th best start in Premier League history. They actually got 51 points in their first 19 games, one more than Arsenal. Who did they lose the league to? Well, yeah, Pep Guardiola's Manchester City. And that season does have quite a lot of familiarities with this year. But before we talk about Man City, let's talk about how good Arsenal have been this year. This video is an Arsenal video. Arsenal have been so creative in so many areas. I think this is why they've been so good. Interestingly, Martin Odegaard is Arsenal's highest top scorer in the Premier League. He has just 8 goals though. I mean, that's good for him, but he's Arsenal's top scorer with 8 goals. If you look at Leeds, Rodrigo has 10, I think. Mitrovic, he has 11. Ivan Toney has 13. Harry Kane has 16. Man City have a higher scorer, of course, with Erling Haaland. And even Newcastle with Miguel Almiron, he has 9, which is more than Arsenal's top scorer in Martin Odegaard with 8. The thing is with Arsenal, like I said, they're just so creative in so many areas. If you look at the goal contributions, you can see here, I mean, Saka, 7 goals and 7 assists. Trossard this year has 7 goals in the Premier League. Martinelli as well. Jesus has 5 and Nketiah has 5. Even Granit Xhaka and Thomas Partey can get involved in the goals. Xhaka has 3 and Partey, we've seen twice against Spurs, has an absolute rocket on him. Arsenal have also had 9 clean sheets this year, which is so impressive. The second best behind Newcastle, and they actually just have the second best defence in general. Like I said, they've conceded just 16 goals this year, and I think the main reason for that is how hard Arsenal work. If you watch them, the eye test shows just how incredibly hard Arsenal work. They are the best pressing team in the Premier League. It's a nightmare to play against. It is an absolute nightmare to play against Arsenal. The pressing is relentless, and also when they have to defend, they get back in numbers. They don't just not run back. All of their players are committed to running back and doing the defensive work. Another reason why I think Arsenal have been unbelievable this year, and one reason why they are favourites for the title, is because they know their starting 11. If you look at title teams in the past few years, you look at Man City 17-18, Ederson, you have Company and Otamendi, you had at right back Kyle Walker, Fabian Delph, you had Fernandinho, David Silva, Kevin De Bruyne, then you had Aguero, Sane, Sterling. You look at Liverpool, their first 11, you knew you had Alisson, you had Trent, Robertson, Van Dijk, Matip, Henderson, Fabinho, Wijnaldum, Mane, Salah, Firmino. The same is with Arsenal now. This first 11, you know it's Ramsdale, you know it's Ben White, you know it's Gabriel, Saliba, Zinchenko, and you know it's Thomas Partey, Xhaka, Odegaard. You know that's the 3 in midfield. And you know the front 3, if fully fit as well, you know it's going to be Jesus, Saka and Martinelli. I think this is really important that Arsenal do know their starting 11. In fact, Arsenal have changed their team the least amount in the Premier League this year. They've only changed it 14 times. That's just 14 different changes in the starting 11. But now we need to look at their opponents, Manchester City. In 19 games in the 18-19 season, Man City were 6 points behind Liverpool, and after 20 games, they were 7 points behind Liverpool. Man City then, after the 21st game week, beaten Liverpool 2-1 at the Etihad, then went and won their last 16 out of the last 17 games, picking up 48 out of 51 points. I still do not know how they done that. You know, Liverpool often get labelled as mentality monsters, but that year, Manchester City really were mentality monsters. They never gave up on that title at all. It just shows, do not write this Man City team off, and more importantly, do not write Pep Guardiola off. You know, he can produce football magic. Of course, after Man City beat Liverpool, closed the gap to 4 points, won the last 16 out of 17, and then won the Premier League by 1 point. But let's talk about the game in a few weeks between Arsenal and Man City, and let's talk a little bit before that game. Coming into it, Arsenal will play Everton away and Brentford at home. I think they'll win both of these games. I think Everton are just too weak. I think it's a tough game because Sean Dyche has just been revealed as Everton manager, and Brentford are not an easy team as well. This is the thing with the Premier League, every team is difficult to play, but I do think Arsenal will be way too strong for both of them. Picking up 6 points. Man City's fixtures are actually tougher than Arsenal's. They have Tottenham away and they have Aston Villa at home. It's a tricky game. I mean, Villa now have Unai Emery. That's always going to be a tricky game. He's a brilliant manager. Spurs, well, Man City have a terrible record away at Spurs. They even went 2-0 down to Spurs the other day. You know, they came back. But I think that's a really tough game. But I think Man City will win both of them. This means, I think, coming into the game, Arsenal versus Man City on the 15th of February, that Arsenal will have played 21, winning 18, drawing 2 and losing 1 on 56 points. And Man City playing 22 games, winning 16, drawing 3 and losing 3, putting them on 51. Arsenal still have a 5-point advantage. Into that Man City game though, the question needs to be asked, how different are this Arsenal team from previous years? One of the biggest critiques I gave Arsenal last year in my predictions was that going to an away game or a really tough game, a tough atmosphere, they struggled, they lost every single one. So it's fair to say Arsenal are a very different team this year because they hadn't beat Spurs in 9 years away from home. They absolutely dominated Tottenham, smashed them 2-0. You know, that's a massive hurdle to get past. If you look at Crystal Palace, Arsenal last year to Crystal Palace, terrible performance. They lost 3-0, I think, or 2-0. This year, they played unbelievable. First day of the season, Selhurst Park away, tricky game, and they absolutely dominated the game. Brighton away, they made that look easy. Brighton are a very, very good team. You've seen what they've done to Liverpool. This is a really good Brighton side that Arsenal put away. Liverpool at home. Liverpool have absolutely bullied Arsenal in the last few years. 30 seconds, a minute in, Arsenal 1-0 up, 3 points. Brentford away. Brentford a tricky team. Arsenal last year. If you remember Arsenal at Brentford last year? 2-0. This year, nope. Easy, comfortable, good win. Professional. United at home. A last minute winner. Arsenal are showing the sign of champions right now. They are a very different team to previous years, but this is the big test for them. And it gets so real from here. And who do I think is going to win out of the massive game between Man City and Arsenal? I think it's a draw. I know it's boring. Yes, it's boring. But I just think Arsenal with the home factor, that will drag them through. I think Man City are a nightmare team to play for Arsenal. Arsenal play so on the edge. There's one thing I've noticed this year when watching Arsenal that I don't think others have sort of noticed, is that Arsenal do give away a lot of mistakes. Aaron Ramsdale especially, quite a few times this year, has given the ball away. Arsenal this year actually do have the most errors leading to a shot. They are joint top with Spurs on 13. Now, Spurs, it just gets highlighted a lot more because I think people expect it with Hugo Lloris, but with Ramsdale, because he is great on his feet, I think people don't notice it as much. I think when you're playing Man City and you have De Bruyne and Haaland, I think you just cannot get away with it because they have got away with it a few times with some brilliant defending from Gabriel Saliba or Ramsdale making a great save to make up for his original mistake. Now, European football is big for these two teams. Arsenal in the Europa League, the quicker Arsenal get out of this competition, of course, the better. But they can't do that, can they? Fans will pay tickets. Fans will pay hard-earned money to go to these games. What are they going to do? Just score no goal? That's not going to happen. There's no way Arteta says we're losing this game on purpose. That just isn't going to happen. It's unrealistic. What he can do is play a weak squad, and at that point there's no, they can go out without making it look obvious, and I think that's what he should do. I think he should really go all out for this Premier League trophy, and being in the Europa League, no team has ever won the Premier League whilst being in the Europa League. There's a reason for that. The Thursday-Sunday schedule is a nightmare. So far abroad as well, it's just a problem. So I think Arsenal do need to get out of that competition. I think he has to play a weaker team. Man City, well, I mean, a lot of people seem to think that Man City will just focus on the Champions League. Pep hasn't done that 1 year since being manager of Man City. He's not done that in any year in his career ever. Man City have to win or compete for the Premier League at all costs. There's no excuse for them not to. And I think Pep thinks the same way. The Champions League for Man City, I think it happens. If it happens, it happens. The league, you have to be relentless in the Premier League and go for it every single week. I don't think Pep is going to take his foot off the gas at all to go win a Champions League. A cup, you're not even guaranteed to win if you focus all your attention on it anyway. And yes, look, Man City would love the Champions League, of course, but you don't just get rid of the league, bin the league off and focus on one trophy. No, he has a big enough squad to compete for two, and I think that's what Pep will do. And I'm a poet and I know it. So are Arsenal champions worthy? Yes, at the moment they are. I said in my Tottenham versus Man City reaction that if the season carries on like it is right now, Arsenal will win the Premier League, because I was not impressed with Man City in that game. But I will say I think teams will adjust to Arsenal. I think teams right now are coming into a game with so much respect for Arsenal. I think most teams are losing before they even play the game. I think it just takes one loss, one manager to work something out of the next 19 they go into play. And I think that gives the rest of the teams they play, a massive confidence to beat Arsenal. Whereas right now it looks difficult. I think it just takes one loss to ruin that momentum. Whereas Man City have years and years and years of proven championship quality, 4 out of 5 league titles. De Bruyne, we know Haaland's good enough to win a trophy. We know John Stones, we know Edison, we know Ruben Diaz, Kyle Walker, all of these players, Rodri, we know they are good enough to win this title. We are not there with Arsenal. They've shown us that they can win the title. More importantly, they can consistently keep up the pace to win it. And my problem with fans sometimes is they sometimes struggle to think of something different than what is happening right now. They look at the table, they see Arsenal, Man City, Man United, Newcastle, and they think that can't change. That can change. I think fans need to have a bit more of an open mind, that just because the table represents something now doesn't mean it's going to be the same after 38 games. And there are a few weaknesses for Arsenal. I look at Jesus out for another month. Nketiah, he's doing brilliantly. He really is. And I'm surprised how good he's doing. But none of us know if he can carry this on. For me, there's a possibility that the form wanes out a little bit. He has 5 goals in 5 starts. It's, like I said, brilliant. But there are things we have seen Nketiah in the past go in good form and then go into bad form. He's underperforming his XG. He should be on 5 or 6 goals. He's on 4. And I know that's a bit picky, but when you consider Erling Haaland is outperforming his XG by 8, he's on 25 goals. His XG is 17. You can see the difference there. And he did miss 2 really big chances against Spurs and Nketiah. I know Arsenal were cruising in that game, so it didn't matter. But what if that is against any team? It could be crucial in the title race. When you look at Pep's speech that he gave to Man City, I thought it was amazing. The correct decision to do, to fire them up, and they went then and beat Wolves 3-0. I thought it was really smart from Pep, and this is the thing, he's just so clever. He's arguably the GOAT. And he's right, Man City have been complacent this year. Look at the performance to Newcastle away. I thought they were really complacent in that one at times. Everton, how on earth did Man City lose to Everton at home? That screams complacency. The Spurs game in the first half, complacent. And I think that's what is happening to Man City. They were complacent, it was their title. But now they're losing that title and they've thought, oh my God, we are actually going to lose it. And now they start to step up. But I probably haven't given Arsenal enough credit in this video. Arsenal are incredible. And Arsenal fans have to be thinking, not just Arsenal fans, the players, the manager, the owners, have to be thinking that this is their league title to lose, because it is. It is literally in Arsenal's hands. Arsenal have to beat Man City once. And I think if they don't win the league, it's a massive bottle job at that point. I think if they lose it now, and they lose to City twice, loss and a draw, fair enough. But you cannot lose it from here. If you beat Man City once, and then you lose the title, oh. But what Arteta has done this year is so healthy for football. It shows, sticking with a project, having faith in the manager, with the right plan, with the right recruitment, and you can get to the top. I look at, maybe it's different with West Ham. Moyes really is underperforming right there. When you look at someone like a Graham Potter at Chelsea, with the blueprint now that Arsenal have set with backing Arteta, got to think whether owners are thinking the same now about their own manager with a Graham Potter. Will Bowley now give Potter more time because of the example that Arteta set? But like I said, I think Arsenal have been by far the best team in the Premier League this year. Been so impressed with them. I think, I cannot believe how good Ben White is playing. Zinchenko, I knew he was good, but, what a player. And Martin Odegaard, what on earth? He's been the second, I would say either second or third best player this year. Him or Harry Kane second. He has a case for first, actually, Martin Odegaard with Haaland. He is right there. I'd probably go Haaland, Odegaard. Second, he's just so good, honestly. But this video isn't about talking about just how good Arsenal are. It's about will they win the Premier League. And there are worries. I've mentioned a few, and here's a few more. If Arsenal do get one injury to a Saka, an Odegaard, a Saliba, and a Partey, I think it's over. I really worry for Arsenal, because if you look at Arsenal in transition, Saka and Odegaard is where the ball goes most of the time. They are so crucial to getting Arsenal forward with pace. I think if one of them were to get injured, it's such a huge loss for Arsenal. And in the January transfer window, I said Thomas Partey in. I made a video, 10 transfers that need to happen in January, and I said Douglas Luiz to Arsenal. But Caicedo, anyone, you had to get them, cover for Partey. We know how different of a team Arsenal are with and without Thomas Partey. The win ratio is so much lower without than with him. And the fact that they didn't do it, I like Jorginho. Really intelligent, never loses. The ball always has so much space. And you imagine that Arteta can get the best out of him. But for me, the priority was a Thomas Partey replacement, not a replacement, but backup. Because I think Arsenal should have gone all in for this Premier League title. A great opportunity to win it that I don't know if I can see Arsenal having again this good anyway. Also, if we look since Man City in 17-18, the Centurions, Pep Guardiola really established his name, that year in the Premier League. And since that year, to beat Man City to the Premier League title, the average points you would need to beat Man City from then till now is 92 points. In one of those seasons, in 18-19, Man City did have 81 points. So that's actually brought it down a little bit as well. I cannot see Man City getting that low of points again. I think it will be in the 91-92 range. That means I think Man City will pick up around about 46-47 points out of their next 54. Now you might think that's unrealistic, but if you think how some of the poor performances Man City have had in the first half of this year, they still got 42 points. So all I'm thinking is they can get 4 or 5 more points than they did in the first half. I think it's really doable. They had a poor result to Brentford, Liverpool, a poor Liverpool side. The one to Everton. They also drew to Gerrard's Villa. So if you think of how many points they lost there, I think they can make up for that and get around about 46, 47 points. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was more. Now Arsenal, to match that, out of their next 57 points available to them, 19 games, they pretty much can't afford to drop points in about 4 or 5 games. So they have to be not as good in the second half of the season, but they cannot drop the level too much. And I have their fixtures, you can see them right now. I put a red box next to the ones I think that are tricky. They cannot lose points really in many of these games. Maximum. Right now, this is peak Arsenal. I don't know if it gets better than here from the rest of the season. I mean, if Arsenal lose 3 of those, it's pretty much City's title. If Arsenal lose more than 3, they can afford to lose 3, but they can't afford to really draw any more of them either then. If they lose 3 of those games, that's it. They cannot really afford to draw maybe 1 more. And when you think of the pressure, if Arsenal are still in a title race, which I think they will be towards the end of the year, that means that those games against Southampton at home become 10 times harder because of the pressure. They become 10 times bigger. For me, can Arsenal win the Premier League? Yes, of course. I think this is like a 70% chance in favour for Arsenal. I think it's honestly a 70-30 split for Arsenal right now. Massive chance to win this title. But do I think they'll win it? No, I don't. The same way I can tell you Man City will get 91, 92 points, I don't know if I can. You just can't say that about Arsenal because they've been tested. They've played every team in the league. But when a team really faces up to Arsenal and maybe beats them, do they then fall off a cliff, lose momentum? I think they do a little bit. But one thing I will say is, Arsenal fans, you are having an amazing year. If you didn't even win this title, it's not a failure. It would be disappointing for Arsenal fans, of course, because I don't think there's a better chance than now. And I think in the January, the owners will have made a big mistake. I think they already have, not making a bigger signing. You still got Champions League next year, that's guaranteed. You're minimum second this year in the league. It's first or second. And in my opinion, it's just second. I'm very excited to see what happens in this title race. Obviously, I don't want Arsenal to win it, but I think it is exciting. I cannot wait for the Man City game. I will be doing a match reaction to that game. It's in about 2 weeks, February the 15th. So subscribe so you can see that in the future. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and thank you for watching.